duty.
Josh says epistemic inertia.
That's quite a good word.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a real thing in philosophy, but it damn well should be.
It should be. Yep.
Josh,
Wanting
write your
to know the
paper.
truth, eh?
Josh needs to write a paper on it.
It does. Well,
Submit it to
wanting to
SEP.
know the truth can lead to you wanting to learn more truth and more truth and more truth. So there is an inertia behind it.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that you also need to be willing to let go of your ego and your pride and admit that you were wrong.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most difficult things. I mean, I suffer it too. Especially when I first started university, it's like, oh, I was wrong. What? And
I think that's natural as well, isn't it? It can be hard to get over yourself.
yeah,
and it is ourselves that get in the way of ourselves more than anyone else does, really, especially with stuff like this.
yeah, and it becomes easier. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. The more you realize how wrong you were about so many things, the more open you are to understanding how wrong you are.
Yeah, Josh says it's just as hard to change directions as to get it started.
It is.
Yeah,
I agree.
and it is. Yeah, I mean, one of my first articles I wrote on Answers in Reason was how I had briefly got taken in by the anti-vax movement. I'd seen a lot of articles and there was a lot of conspiracy stuff going on, but it was all written in a way that seemed quite valid. And I suppose I was quite new to the conspiracy side of things like that as well. And I had someone that I trusted talking about it, and they convinced me to not get my son vaccinated at the time. Now, this was only delayed by a few weeks because they started contradicting themselves in stories and changing their stories. And when I started questioning them on it, it was always, well, my friend said, oh, well, I don't really understand it. You'll have to speak to my friend. They understand it. And I was like, hang on. You don't really understand this thing, but you're doing it. And I looked into it more and more and found out that it was a bit of. So I started presenting the other side to it and all the actual science rather than the pseudoscience, rather than the people that were trying to sell you something. And that's one of the key things I noticed. All the anti-vax sites out there seem to be trying to sell you something, some form of oil or rub or acupuncture or crystal healing or anything like that. And it was just like, right. And I started reading more and more stories about some people who had been taken in by all of this stuff and ended up dying and etc. And you know, I did a 180 on it, but in trying to speak to them about it, they couldn't admit that they were wrong. And I see them all the time. In fact, you know, going on and on and on about this stuff on the internet, and they're not open to reason. They're caught up in the conspiracy. And I think there's some of it is pride, not being able to admit that you're wrong. Also, when you've held a belief for so long and you've been telling so many people this is what it is, even if you no longer believe it, it's kind of hard to go back and go, right, all of you people that I told you not to vaccinate your kids. Shit, sorry.
Yeah.
Vaccinated. So they're almost stuck. It's a bit of a sunk cost.
It is. And it also brings us to another part of epistemic responsibility in quite a nice way.